Good day, everyone. This is Faith Ong from the UP Asian Center. My research is titled Breaking the Glass Ceiling Japanese Women in Leadership Positions. The background of this research is on the invisible glass ceiling that women experience in Japanese workplaces. They find it difficult to pursue a career and get promoted into leadership positions, so they end up resigning into the typical domesticated life of a wife and mother. Despite state efforts like the Equal Employment Opportunity Law and the Womenomics Policy, according to OECD statistics in 2015, Japan still ranks low in female representation in leadership positions at the public and corporate levels. In 2021, the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap reports that Japan is ranked 147 out of 156 countries when it comes to women's political empowerment. The aim of this research is to find out why there is a disconnect between policy and outcomes and examine successful career women. That said, the research questions are: why has Japan been slow in catching up to the global gender equality momentum? How does education play a role in women's careers? And how can women in the executive or managerial positions increase? To find answers, this research relies on secondary sources such as published academic works, news articles, publications from international organizations, and multimedia resources. The scope of this research is on white collar professional women in managerial and executive positions in the corporate and entrepreneurship and in the public sector from the 1990s onwards. The literature review reveals that when it comes to Japanese work culture, it is saturated with works on the Japanese salaryman. When there is a gendered lens, however, there are more works on large corporations rather than in SMEs. The numerous hindrances and challenges that women face are often tackled. There is also much credit on the EEOL and other state initiatives for the increase of women workforce participation. But successful career women and female entrepreneurship in Japan deserve more attention. This research would like to address these gaps to see what enabled these women to successfully climb up the ranks. The social relations analysis under the gender and development framework is used as a lens to examine deterrents of women's career advancement. The SRA was developed by Naila Kabir. It argues that systematic and structural forces are the causes of gender inequality, and for gender transformation to occur, their root causes need to be addressed. It has four main concepts. Firstly, that development is considered as the process of increasing human well being. Secondly, social relations create and reproduce systematic differences in determining an individual's roles, responsibilities, rights, and claims over others. Thirdly, institutions are key in the production and maintenance of social inequalities. Four key institutions are identified: the family, the community, the market, and the state. They are not confined and limited, but extends to institutions of all levels. Finally, these institutions reflect different gender policies depending on the extent they recognize and address gender issues. In patriarchal Japan, gender relations seem to reflect the pattern of male dominance and female subservience. But historically, women were not excluded in the workforce. During the early industrialization period, they contributed to the development of textile, silk, cotton, coal mining, and other industries. During World War II, women comprised of around 80 to 90% of the labor force in the absence of male workers due to conscription. During the subsequent rebuilding of Japan's economy, companies turned to female labor to provide low wage and seasonal work, especially in the manufacturing sector, but also in agriculture, fisheries, and handicrafts. When the bubble burst and the aging population began to be more pronounced, attention was given to women once again as untapped potential to fill in the labor force. Hence, women are burdened to provide labor to a stagnating economy and with the need to give birth in order to repopulate the aging labor force. By 2019, women's workforce participation has been on a steady rise. However, the majority of these women continue to work on a part time basis. We now examine the family, community, state, and market levels according to the social relations analysis. Family and community expectations of female homemakers are rooted from the 1960s to the 1980s, when men enjoyed stable jobs, so it was only practical that the women stayed at home. This created a trend of professional housewives, although some may engage in unpaid work or part time work. The economic recession allowed more women into the workforce, but career advancement is still difficult and is still considered a man's endeavor. As for the state and the market, the state is an advocate of women's workforce participation. The Ministry of Labor has always promoted the development of women's workforce participation and their promotion to higher positions. The Gender Equality Bureau was established in 2001 in order to create policies with the government in regards to gender equality. In 1986, the Equal Employment Opportunity Law granted equality in hiring, transfers, wages, and retirement. However, loopholes and weak implementation prompted several revisions in 1997 and in 2005 to 2006, tackling specific issues in promotion, recruitment, and hiring, while the latter addressed sexual harassment in the workplace. In 2013, former Prime Minister Abe's womenomics policy aimed to encourage the participation of women into the workforce and the promotion of women into leadership positions through several concrete policies. So far, it has been successful in recruiting more women into the labor force, but the type of employment is still largely part time. According to the 2018 white paper by the Gender Equality Bureau Cabinet Office, 70% of women still opt for part time or contractual employment. 17% have permanent jobs. 7.3% fall in other types of employment, while a very small percentage at 5.3% is self employed. Others pointed out that this is because the policies were not intended for women's well being, rather, its purpose was for economic growth, which hampers progress towards women empowerment. And while the state seems to be proactive in this agenda, the question still remains as to whether female labor will be attractive in the market, especially for male dominated employers. For the labor market, employers find women workers to be unfavorable since they cannot be invested on in terms of skills, as women usually quit their jobs when they get married or when they get pregnant. They also usually cannot commit to working abroad or long working hours because of household responsibilities. Interestingly, the women themselves voluntarily drop out of the race for the same reasons that employers have, which is to focus on home life. They are also discouraged by the lack of promotional opportunities, lack of challenging work, and poor relationships in the office due to a gender bias. So, although state level policies may attempt to include women into the labor force, this does not necessarily mean that changes will immediately occur in the family, the community, and the market levels. State level initiatives seem to have only been moderately successful. Even after launching Prime Minister Abe's womenomics policy, the number of women managers continue to lag behind other developed countries. So, what enables a small percentage of women to achieve that far in their careers? In this section, micro-level narratives are used to give a voice and complete the picture of successful career women in Japan. In the corporate, Fukuyama Noriko was a senior vice president and co-head of legal of Japan and Korea at a large multinational American investment bank in Tokyo. She comes from a lower middle class family in Osaka and finished her schooling in the US through several scholarships and grants. She then obtained a law degree, worked in New York law firms for several years before settling in Tokyo. In Japanese politics, Yuriko Koike is a notable figure. She comes from an affluent family in Hyogo Prefecture. She graduated with a degree in sociology at the Cairo University in Egypt in 1976 and then began her career as a TV newscaster before her rise in politics. She is currently the governor of Tokyo and is projected to become Japan's first female prime minister. In entrepreneurship, Ishihara Miyoko owns and manages a SME, a beauty salon in Ehime Prefecture. She has an all-female staff and has flexible working hours to adapt to her workers' schedule as employed mothers. Because of her revolutionary setup, her beauty salon was awarded as Most Valuable Company by the SME Support Japan in Shikoku. Meanwhile, Akiko Naka is the founder of Wantedly, a job listing site that connects employers with potential employees with 2 million users and a market value of 29 billion yen. She is the youngest woman to lead a company listed in the Tokyo Stock Exchange and is considered as Asia's Power Businesswomen in 2019 by Forbes. Naka-san graduated from Kyoto University. What is interesting among these women is that while family backgrounds differ, two graduated top in their class abroad, while Naka-san came from the elite Kyoto University. In conclusion, the SRA provides institutional and gendered analysis on the family, the community, the market, and the state of Japan, which influence women's career advancement. So far, efforts by the state to promote women's advancement have moderate results, as long established norms and pragmatism in the family, community, and the market levels persist. Although the link between education and employment cannot be denied, it does not necessarily lead to career advancement. From the micro-level narratives, it seems that what sets them apart is education from elite and top universities in Japan, overseas education, further studies, and exceptional talent, access to which can be their family backgrounds and inborn skills. Other studies have noted that women's law degrees or even a MBA help propel their careers. There is an emotional cost to their excellence, however, as some of them express feelings of regret and guilt in focusing on their careers over family. If unmarried, they find it difficult to accept that they have failed in getting married and having a family. Surprisingly, some of the pressure comes from other women if they believe they have suffered more than others, and so they burden others in pursuing their careers. The inner conflict comes from women's balancing act between the expected life trajectory and forging a new socially accepted identity of a career woman in Japan. In increasing women in managerial and leadership positions, there should be an increased focus on women's well being when it comes to policies and work practices. The priority, instead of economic development, must rather be on the improvement of women's work life balance. There must be an increase in the representation of women in leadership positions to encourage them to continue pursuing career advancement. And finally, there must be increased support for career women and female entrepreneurship. Japanese women currently find themselves at a time of greater opportunities and must pave the way to establishing career women as the norm. And this ends my presentation. Thank you for listening. I will flash the references of this research on the screen.